back to our budget coverage. With me, the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. Thanks for your time, your third budget, but have you given up any notion of paying off the debt?
Well, no, and this budget is all about securing Australia's economic recovery. We are recovering very strongly. Around 500,000 jobs have been created since the last year's budget, which was just over 6 months ago, and Australia has been the outperformer when it comes to the rest of the world on both the health and the economic front. But we recognise that the virus...
Isn't that the time to pay off some debt?
Well, Kieran, the virus is still with us. You've seen more than 800,000 new cases a day. You've seen Europe go into a double-dip recession. You've seen a statewide lockdown recently in Western Australia here. So we have to secure the recovery. That's why this budget has a focus on the health measures to keep Australians safe, has a focus on job creation, particularly infrastructure, skills, tax relief for families, incentives for business to do what they do best, hire, innovate.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. And no one's saying let's have a surplus next year, but out to 2031, we're still talking deficits.
Well, in this budget...
Has the Liberal Party given up on surpluses?
No. And what you see in this budget is that deficits come down by 2/3 over the forward estimates, and that net debt to the size of the economy, to GDP, compared to what was forecast at last year's budget, is lower each and every year. Now, that's a key indicator of fiscal sustainability.
Is that because the interest rates are so low, the economy is growing more than the interest rates?
The economy is growing more, and also because we have, in this budget, a lot of temporary spending. When you think about the lower middle income tax offset, that's a stimulus measure. It's not baked in permanently. When you think about the immediate expensing provision, it's designed to bring forward investments by business. The infrastructure programs have a date on it in terms of rolling them out.
What about the low and middle income tax offset? Does that have a date on it, or are you going to make it permanent? You've rolled it over for another year.
It's not a permanent feature of the tax.
Would you look to do it permanent?
It's not. What we have done instead is legislate very significant tax reform which abolishes a whole tax bracket, Kieran, the 37 cents in the dollar. Now, that legislated stage 3 of our tax plan will see 95% of taxpayers pay a marginal rate of no more than 30 cents in the dollar. That's a huge reform. One big bracket between 45 and 200,000.
Most of the benefit of that goes to people earning more than $180,000.
Not at all. If you're earning...
In cash terms,
if you're earning $45,000 when stage 3 is locked in, together with the other stages we've already put in place, you will be $1,080 a year better off compared to before the plan was put in place. And this is a really important point. With respect to our tax plan, it maintains its progressive nature. If someone earns $200,000 a year, they're earning 4 times as much as someone earning $50,000, but they're paying 8 times as much tax under our stage 3 and fully rolled out tax plan. So we've still ensured the top 5% of taxpayers pay around 1/3 of the overall tax.
Can you afford those stage 3 cuts though? Given
it's legislated,
it's about $20 billion a year.
It's legislated, it's affordable, and make our economy stronger.
Your headroom for borrowing, it looks like, reading from the budget, it said, based on current yields, an additional $1.6 trillion in debt would need to be issued in order for public debt interest as a share of GDP to reach the 1990s peak of 2%. It sounds like there's a fair bit of headroom if the worst were to happen and we were to face another more severe lockdown.
What that's referencing...
Can you borrow more?
Well, our focus is on ensuring that Australia gets to the other side of this crisis. It's about securing the recovery. It's not about taking for granted or the gains we've made or being complacent. It's about trying to drive the unemployment rate lower. You would have seen in the budget papers from tonight that unemployment is expected from Treasury to go below 5% at the end of next year. The last time we had unemployment at a sustained period under 5% was between 2006 and 2008. Then you have to go back all the way to the 1970s. So we have a historic opportunity to drive the unemployment rate down, but it's all about jobs.
Also a historic challenge of dealing with the aged care problem.
Yeah.
$17.7 billion. Doesn't sound like it's enough. It's a lot of money, but the Royal Commission says you need $10 billion a year. That's 17.7 across 4 years.
Kieran, we're spending more than $23 billion a year before tonight's announcement on aged care.
But is this enough in additional dollar? Because the Royal Commission said $10 billion more. The sector says as well something similar. You've put in 17.7 over 4 years.
So this is a significant investment in a better quality aged care system, but it's also got significant reform in it as well. So we've got 80,000 new home care packages. That will bring to 275,000 the number of home care packages. We've also got here a $10 per resident per day increase in government funding. That's something the sector's been asking for. We've got more time that is spent by carers and nurses with residents. We've got 33,000 new training places for carers.
So
we've got a new act,
it will
regulator.
Do what's needed in terms of that
I'm confident
system, which is letting down a lot of older Australians.
I'm confident this will make a big change.
Let's look at foreign aid, because in real terms,
It's
down,
$4 billion a year. It's significant.
It's down by 4% in real terms from 2021 to 2024. Now, we are in what the OECD, what it's called the 0.2% club donors. We are in the bottom three donors when it comes to foreign aid at the OECD, international economies, developed economies. We're in the top 10 richest countries in the world. We're a wealthy country. Shouldn't we be doing more?
And if you look at our response to COVID, we're doing everything we can to help our neighbours in a region playing a critical role. And our aid program is a very successful program at around $4 billion a year, which is designed to do everything from a health response to an infrastructure response to better quality education in the region.
It's 0.19% of gross national income. What does it say about our country that we're in the bottom three of developed economy donors?
Well, Kieran, I'd put to you that we have very strong relationships in our region and that we have a very effective aid program.
Would you like to do more? Is that an option? Is that an ambition for you, given how well this V-shaped recovery is going? We've got 20 developing nations in our neighbourhood.
Kieran, we're always looking to help out our neighbours and some of the other countries in our region who are not as well financially off as Australia is.
The women's statement, it's you forecast that with me on the Sunday Agenda program, $3.4 billion in total. Does the quantum of funds match the intent that the government had foreshadowed on this in dealing with the women's issues?
Again, it's not the first or the last word on these matters, but there are a comprehensive range of measures that we've announced tonight. For women's economic security, obviously childcare at $1.7 billion is a very targeted program at those with more than one child in childcare. Treasury believe that that could boost GDP by around $1.5 billion a year and lead to 300,000 more hours being worked a week. And I spoke tonight how families will be better off under our childcare plan. We've also made changes around superannuation so that it's paid on the first dollar and removed that $450 a month threshold. That will see more money.
Does this say you're listening to women?
And then there's women's safety initiatives and women's
budget. Do you feel that they will believe that you're listening to their concerns now? Because childcare, for example, that's family. It relates to the whole family, not just the...
But also it's a particularly important measure around female workforce participation. Female workforce participation in Australia is at a record high, but it's still 10 points below male workforce participation. And what we're seeking to do is to reduce the disincentive for a parent if they choose to work an extra day from taking that work.
Now, just before you go, the iron ore windfall is huge, largely consumed and purchased, hoovered up by the Chinese economy and the Chinese nation, and yet we've got this geopolitical tension on the other side. There's an irony that underpins your budget, isn't there?
Well, firstly, the iron ore price has been a lot higher than what we had initially forecast. We were expecting for it to trend down to $55 a tonne. We've seen it sustained above $160 a tonne from last December. We now have a new estimate around the iron ore price that it will also be at $55 a tonne, but by next March. If it is above that level, we will see more money come through company tax receipts. But I do point out to you that that economic relationship with China remains very important and mutually beneficial.
You'll sleep better at night if you can get that back on an even keel, I would have thought.
Well, I think it's important for both countries that economic partnership continues.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, appreciate your time.
My pleasure.